And we're live. Hello out there in the interwebs. If you are catching us on the Facebook group or on YouTube, and whether or not you are watching us live or on the replay, this is our monthly movie club, which
Woo!
this month we watched The Prestige, which I hadn't seen since it first came out. So it was fun to watch it again.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, if you are watching it live, you can comment on it and we will actually see those comments so we can read them in real time. If you're watching it on the replay, you can still write comments on the post, and I think Beckett and I will still get notifications on it.
And we will still respond to you.
Yes, because I always want to talk about it. It's why I started these clubs. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of an introduction to The Prestige. This is a movie that was released in 2006, and it's listed as a psychological thriller, which I think is appropriate, but every single time I looked it up, everything has a different description of what it is. Sometimes it's called a mystery or a drama, and I think a mysterious drama is just a thriller. But anyways, it was directed by Christopher Nolan, and it was actually written by Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan, which is how a lot of their early movies went. It's actually based on a novel that was written by Christopher Priest, and I think released in the mid-90s.
Oh.
Yeah. It stars Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale as two musicians that get caught up in their obsessions of trying to pretty much outdo one another. What did I say? Musicians?
Yeah.
Different movie.
Different movie.
That would be a different movie.
Yes. Magicians. Probably just combining things together because I'm talking very fast for some reason. But they get caught up in their obsession of creating the best magic tricks possible and just kind of trying to one-up each other and sabotage each other. And it's really a story about obsession.
Yeah, I was writing out the description for this chat, and I almost called it Whodunit, and I was like, but it's not that. But it kind of feels like that a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because it is magicians. Because you have that magic element to it.
Yeah, and that there is a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah. I mean, it has a mystery in the sense of the same as I think a lot of thrillers have. But that's actually something that I wanted to bring up of both Beckett and I have seen this movie before. Ryan had never seen it before, but he's heard descriptions of it. So he knew a lot about it before going into it. And we watched it with another friend of ours who had never seen it and had never heard it and came to our house and sat down and was like, what is this movie about? Just no ideas whatsoever. So we got a pretty good cast of characters to judge a movie on.
And also, fair warning for viewers out there will be spoilers in this chat, and this being a little bit of a mystery movie, you may not want to hear them. So
yeah,
we'll warn you before we give a spoiler, but just especially towards the end of the discussion, probably we will be spoiling it. So just fair warning.
Yeah, I'll try to keep all of the vague things up front so that if you want to watch it, but we'll say it beforehand.
It is a 17-year-old movie.
So still.
Okay.
Then I always want to know, especially with a movie that is a thriller and has that mystery element, since you've already watched it before, did the twist hit you the same way? Or watching it just seem weird because
I had forgotten. No, I had completely forgotten because, like Ryan mentioned, it is quite an old movie. And I did go and see it in theaters when it first came out. And at that time, I did not see it coming, whatsoever. It was a total shock. I was like, ugh. But when you find out what it was and you think back on the events of the movie, it's like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. I should have seen that coming. I should have seen that before.
Yeah, but, I think well done movies always do that, where you're just have to question things.
Yeah. But watching it again, I had completely forgotten most of the film. So going in like halfway through, I was like still in the dark. Like, how is he doing this? And then it clicked and I was like, oh, that's right. Now I remember.
Just to keep like the things that aren't super spoily up front. When I was reading up on the production of the movie and all of that, they spent a very long time talking about how much effort the Nolan brothers put into finding locations. Like all the locations had specific meanings for them and like their idea for where the story would go, and all of them were filmed on site. They were all on site. Things that were filmed, and like they were very adamant about it to the point where like it took them a very long time to film it so they could make sure they had specific locations available.
Wow. So the scenes in London were shot in London, and then the scenes in Colorado were in Colorado,
Yes.
etc. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
There's only one set that was built on any backlots, and it was like behind the stage.
Huh. That's
No, I thought
quite...
in the credits, didn't they have thank you to, and then it was some other country though?
Yeah, we did see that. And I don't remember. But yeah, they were very, very specific about filming locations. And I thought that was very strange because watching this movie, I never thought about any of the locations at any point in time. And they felt very unexciting, I guess.
At the same time, though, they did feel very natural. Like, you know, if it was filmed any portion on a backlot, like it was a really good backlot kind of thing, you know?
I don't know where you read that, Rebecca, but on their Wikipedia says they shot it almost entirely in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah, the Los Angeles
I'm
Theater, the
so
Palace
confused.
Theater, the Bellagio, the Tower Theater, and then the Universal backlot for Victorian London.
What?
Wow.
Really? Oh.
According to
I also looked up on Wikipedia.
I don't know then.
So, not going to go into that dispute.
Let me change some things on the Wikipedia real fast.
Somebody's on there in between us, just like going for it. Then we will just ignore that for now. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was weird that like it got brought up like 4 times when I was like looking at things, and I was like, this is
weird.
Strange.
Especially if they didn't shoot everything on location. That's really strange.
I don't know. Yeah.
They were Rebecca's gone.
Rebecca's gone.
They were
all right.
They were good sets though, I will say.
Oh, absolutely. Again, it was the set design and the wardrobe and everything was fantastic. But that said, I think it was a little overhyped.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, because I told a few people what the movie club movie was, and they're like, oh, I love that movie. It's fantastic. I think the only good thing about this movie was the editing. The fact that we jumped in time with the diaries, as soon as we left those diaries, I kind of got bored.
Yeah, it's jumping between the 2 diaries, and honestly, it gets really confusing for me because there was at some point in there where I was like, wait, are we reading a diary entry about a man reading a different diary entry? How many diaries deep are we in at this point?
Yeah, it's confusing at first.
But yeah, I want to know what the original script looked like and how much of it was the editor, whose name is Lee Smith. He pretty much after this movie worked on everything else that Christopher Nolan has done. But this was the first movie he worked on with it, which is interesting because Memento came before.
Memento, yeah.
And I think that the editing in that one is also what makes that movie a movie. Although then again, this is something that comes up in like every Christopher Nolan movie, so it just might be how he writes.
Well, I think he really likes the twists, right? Yes. He always likes the Memento, you got the Inception, you got this movie, less so with Batman, and then you also have, what was his most recent one that no one saw, and they got mad at people for not saying it. No one could hear it. It was called
I am honestly drawing a blank as well. Tenet.
Thank you. Oh, also Interstellar was good.
Yeah, Interstellar was good, but also has the same thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He really likes to play with time and the audience's perception of time.
Right.
But is that like a hindrance to it? Like M. Night Shyamalan, which Ryan and I recently saw, his most recent movie, Knock at the Cabin. But like it kind of has like this thing of like, oh, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I guess we know what we're expecting when we go in. And I wonder if Christopher Nolan's starting to fall into that with the time thing.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen his recent stuff, but I don't think it. If anything, it's a strength because it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do well. I don't know how well. Do you have the numbers on how this movie did in the box office?
I do. It had a budget of $40 million and it had a box office of $109.7 million. Do you have different numbers, Ryan?
Nope, I'm looking at the same ones.
Okay, good, because I was starting to be like, did I just read a Wikipedia page for like a different?
Did you just read a fake Wikipedia page?
I'm just looking at the production, and then on the bottom it talks about Crowley and his crew searched LA for the almost 70 locations that resembled fin de Sillon, London. That's not how you say that word at all. Anyway, and then they also went to Colorado Springs to research the scene on actual experiments conducted by Tesla, and then they built it at the Mount Wilson Observatory.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the mountains of LA, the mountains of Colorado, like
they're
you can tell the difference.
Honestly, movie magic.
Also, on the note of the editor of this movie, though, another movie that he did was 1917, which is also fantastically edited.
I didn't see that.
You should. It's good.
I should. Yeah.
It's not to talk about a different movie too much, but it's all supposed to be one shot.
One continuous steady
one
cam
continuous shot throughout the entire movie.
Which is done in editing.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that would be quite impressive if it was just one shot through the whole film.
I mean, Birdman also tried. I think, again, also there were hidden cuts in there, but for the most part.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
All I'm saying is that Lee Smith is an insanely talented editor.
Editing can make or break a film.
Oh, absolutely. I think the editor is responsible for how the story comes together.
Right. What was it? What was the language one where the aliens land and it started to Arrival. Yeah, apparently the whole jumping back and forth in the narrative was all done in the editing room. The original script was linear, and that's the best part of the movie was
that's
the
a great
reveal
choice.
on that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to jump into some of the spoiler things now. Because
Beware,
that is
spoilers.
That's the most important part of this movie.
Kinda.
But Ryan and I had a huge discussion about who did you view as the villain? Like who is the villain here?
It's a really hard choice to make.
It's all Tesla's fault. All of it.
Okay, that is technically true. But yeah, no, it's hard because you're constantly thinking that it's one person through the entire movie, and then it gets to a certain point and you're like, oh, wait a second, it was actually the other guy the whole time.
Well, it feels like it should be one-upmanship. Like, if it weren't for the death of Hugh Jackman's wife, right? If you didn't go into it already not liking Christian Bale, it would have been more about like the hubris and literal one-upmanship. But as it stands, it feels like Christian Bale got his wife murdered, and then kept consistently getting just coming out ahead.
I disagree with this because I think the actual thing that started this rivalry was Hugh Jackman shooting off his finger. Shooting off Christian Bale's finger.
But that was in revenge for
for
having
his wife's
perceived him killing his wife. Yeah.
right. It's him acting out on something, whereas the death of the wife could have actually been like a legitimate accident.
But sure,
But
except
he
that
doesn't perceive it that way.
Yes,
sure.
but still.
But Michael Caine warned him specifically, don't do this. And I know she the wife signed off on it. Rebecca Hall, I guess.
Hang on, I gotta
No.
go let the cat out. You guys keep talking.
Yeah. Rebecca Hall is the
Oh,
other
you're right. That was
wife. I never
Borden's
put
wife.
yeah. I think the person who plays
She's not listed on the.
it's like Piper something.
Granted, she was not in the movie long. I'm just suggesting that he was warned not to, and then he never really got his comeuppance. Because again, he struggled, right, to make his own, to start his own big trick. But even then, he became the talk of the town, and just consistently, Hugh Jackman kept just getting foiled.
I still think that one was a possible accident and the other one was somebody going out with that intent in mind.
Right.
And I think those are very, very different things. And so in my mind, for this entire movie, I kind of just view Hugh Jackman as like the villain for me.
I think you're supposed to think or show like how far a good man, like he wouldn't get his hands dirty. Christian Bale, he'll smush a bird like that. He doesn't care. But Hugh Jackman wouldn't do it until the end, where he'll smush birds all day.
I am on mute. I think we're supposed to sympathize with Hugh Jackman,
Right.
and until the end. But yeah, I mean, granted, I had forgotten where the movie was going, but I was definitely rooting for him the whole time up until a certain point.
Because more or less, yeah, we follow him because the only times we really jump into Christian Bale's character is in reaction to Hugh Jackman, right? Like we see a little bit of his dating Sarah, what's her name? But yeah, I don't know. I think Christian Bale was the bad guy. I think it's funny that no one got to use their actual accents. Hugh Jackman, an Australian guy, had to play an American. Christian Bale, English, had to play a Cockney kind of rough. And I guess Michael Caine got to keep his accent.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson with one of the worst British accents.
I thought Christian Bale's was rough too.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought his was fine.
I'm gonna go back to something that Brian said because it is like a theme in there of the difference between Angiers and Borden, which is kind of classist of Angiers. Hugh Jackman comes from money and never has to get his hands dirty and kind of just pays money for other people to come up with tricks for him,
right?
And never comes up with them on his own versus Borden, Christian Bale,
and literally steals them from other people.
Yeah. Up until the very end, he's trying to buy things off of people.
Yeah, but I kind of think that was part of the revenge thing. Was less like, I don't need to know what your trick was. I just want you to know that I won, right?
But Borden has to get his hands dirty. Borden's the one who is like, I need to come up with these tricks myself, willing to kill the bird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is weird because like the method that they come up with it is Angiers goes to Tesla, and I feel like Tesla is the get your hands dirty versus Edison.
But Tesla, I feel like is remembered anyway as more of the like benevolent, just kind of wanted to give everyone electricity for free kind of inventor, whereas Edison is remembered as a very cutthroat, ruthless, like businessman.
Right. But in the movie itself, for because Tesla's in it, played by David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
I had forgotten David Bowie was in this film. I was like, oh my gosh, we just talked about him.
I actually wrote it like on our description. I was like, yeah, I'm making a tie. But yeah, no, Tesla is viewed in the film as actually doing the experiments, or I guess maybe not so much Tesla as Andy Serkis,
Right.
but
Willing to sacrifice a cat.
yeah, like getting your hands dirty, actually doing the work to put it in, and then he gets run out of town because Edison just wants to steal it. And yet
Mhm.
Tesla is the one who came up with the thing for Angiers, who is doing exactly what Edison is doing.
Well, and Edison just wants to capitalize off of it instead of what Tesla wants to do, which is just provide.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like the movie kind of sets us up for disliking Christian Bale's character right off the bat, but that's when the twist at the end kind of makes you rethink your entire like just perception of these people and what they mean. And I think it's really pertinent that you mentioned there's a class commentary going on here, because we're villainizing Christian Bale's character, who is the poor boy come from nothing, you know, trying to make his way in the world and like kind of fucking it all up as he goes. But by the end of it, he's kind of the hero in a way.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm different of like I think I support Christian Bale through the vast majority of it. And I mean, yeah, because you kind of only view his assholery through other people telling him that he's an asshole.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very selfish and just not willing to compromise with other people, which is another theme of the movie, which is how much are you willing to sacrifice for your art? And Christian Bale is just like everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally
This
everything.
is literally everything. But yeah, for me, Christian Bale, despite being very selfish, he's just kind of doing his own thing. Like, I'm pretty sure he would have been doing the exact same thing this entire time, whether or not Hugh Jackman was there.
Also, he dragged an innocent woman and created a child out of it.
Yeah,
Knowing and like
spoilery.
yeah.
He
And
lived half a life under the
yeah,
guise.
exactly.
Yes.
And that is very selfish. You know,
It's-
like extremely and like very, very much setting himself up to fail, knowing that his spoiler alert, his twin wasn't in love with his wife, you know, and that was going to fuck up that relationship, but he didn't care.
This is the
Right.
one thing that really annoys me with this movie is that every single time you see his wife, she tells you whether or not he loves her that day. And I'm like, has this just been going on for their entire relationship? Just every single day, you're just like, yes, today.
Yep.
No, not today. Like, that just sounds
It's
terrible.
horrible. It's abusing.
It's very bad. And it makes me wonder just so just have Fallon be Fallon, and then when he's
Right.
with his wife, just be with his wife.
But
Just-
he had to commit to the whole like, and that's the
Yeah.
whole purpose of bringing in the crippled magician, you know, because the Chinese guy who
Oh,
had
yes.
the fishbowl trick, because he commits. He's crippled all the time, not just
Right.
when he's on stage. Because if he walked off the stage and could walk properly, everyone would know.
I
So
thought he was more old than, I think, handicapped.
Well, no,
well, he
they
walked with a
say
cane and
crippled.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he walks with a cane and like is always hunched over, walking with
yeah.
his
Mm.
bow-leggedness.
Which Christian Bale's character very much admired.
Yes.
Right.
But because that shows commitment to the craft. But like to knowingly do that to another human being, I mean, spoiler alert, he drove her to suicide.
Yeah.
To drunkenness and then suicide. Like,
Which
that's
also
not love.
narratively felt weird and out of place.
It did feel
too.
narratively weird and out of place because it does. It feels like you're really pushing this. I don't mean to. I'm not siding with. I think Christian Bale's character. We keep saying Christian Bale, like Christian Bale is the person who was doing these terrible things. But his character absolutely did do an like very selfish thing. But I think in terms of the actual story and plot and the way it moves on, like I said, he would have been doing, I think, the same thing no matter what.
Sure.
And also, I mean, I think his wife in the movie, Sarah, I don't know what she was expecting from the relationship, but she came in a little bit like, I feel like she had a lot of time to back out of that or understand. I don't know. It did kind of feel out of the blue, or for me, it felt like something that was done narratively to make you hate him more. But as like a
Mm.
Right.
person, it felt like a strange choice.
I think again it's supposed to be ping pong in between, like, revenge, more or less, right? And so I
Yes.
think that was Hugh Jackman's. He didn't actually, he's not directly responsible for her death, but he kind of is, because he
Mhm.
brought the attention. And again, Scarlett Johansson's character was also just no one can just ignore the charm of of Christian Bale's character, I guess. Just
Look, they're magicians.
It,
All
it
girls
felt,
love magicians.
it
all
felt
girls love
very
magicians.
random. Yeah, it felt very random that Scarlett Johansson's character would fall in love with him,
I
especially at that point. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It was
I
kind of
I,
out of the
I
blue.
agree.
I think the outside relationships felt weird, and we just didn't spend enough time with them. I also think that Fallon's a weird character that was never fully introduced or explored. And so when you make the realization that he doesn't exist as a person, it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, well, I
Right.
feel like that was on purpose. Like he was meant to be kind of in the background for that
All
reason.
at all those reveals at the end, just right after each other, it just really took the sting out of any of them.
I mean, Ryan was with me watching this with our friend Johnny. Um, Johnny's commentary throughout it was absolutely hilarious to me, because like he was completely silent through most of the movie, and then it got to like, I think, the hat reveal in it, and he was just like, "Oh, they're just gonna give this all to us right now," and I'm like, "Sir, we are like an hour 45 minutes into like a 2-hour movie right now. What do you mean they're giving it to you too early?"
I guess
But
we're too used to 3-hour movies these days.
it's true, but I do think that they telegraphed it a little too much. But also, it really, I don't know.
I don't know. I think of all the reveals in the entire movie, the hat reveal is probably the most impactful,
Yeah.
because at first you just think, "Oh, it's not working." Like,
Sure. No, I meant more the jars of the tanks that they removed from the show every time.
mhm.
That was when the guy we saw with Johnny was like, "Oh, that's dark," I think is what his exact words were.
Yeah.
Not that, again, we didn't know the reveal yet, but it
And
was
he had
kind of
already figured it out.
figured it
Yes.
out about
Yeah.
30 minutes before
But
the
I think
final.
it does. I think that is something that is unfortunate about it narratively, is you have that hat reveal, and that reveal feels good. And then it just
Yes.
like keeps doing things after that, and I
Yeah.
kind of get numb to the fact that we're revealing things, and so it just like gets
Yeah.
progressively less
Fair. And
interesting,
then
I guess.
if you think about what they revealed with the hats,
Mhm.
then it logics to follow that the tanks are the reason why
Right.
we're only seeing one of Hugh Jackman.
Right.
So that would be an easy puzzle piece to fit in.
So I was telling Ryan about the book
But they
that this
treat it
is
like it's
based
a
on.
bigger
Right.
Yeah.
reveal at the
Yeah.
end.
It makes a lot more sense in the book's narrative, where in the book version of this, it's actually like their grandchildren who are reading their diaries, as opposed to a diary of a man
Mm.
reading a diary from another man. Um, and so it makes a lot more sense. And then, spoilers for the book, I guess, but it's the kids. It's like their great grandchildren who find all the tanks in the end. And
Oh.
that is like a much better reveal, because I feel like you already know what you're going to find when it's like the characters in it. It doesn't feel like a reveal, and it kind of just has, I always have the reaction of, why weren't you getting rid of them?
What would you
What were you keeping these for?
Because what would you do with them?
What
Like,
wouldn't you do? I mean, listen, this is a time where you could sell a dead body to medical students for like $100.
but he
Yeah.
was also a very well-known figure too. Like,
I don't know. He had a
That's
man
the
who was
face up.
his look-alike for a very long time.
I'm just saying, have an army of you. That's the best
Also,
trick of all.
like, was where he was storing them was a different theater than he was performing in?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it would have to be because they transported them every night.
Yeah.
How much money does it cost to make those tanks?
He made one tank and teleported it. Easy peasy. You only need to make the one.
1,000 tanks.
I think so. I actually got spoiled for me because it was I think a Cracked article about like, so wait, you're telling me he made an infinite money generator? He could literally just put gold watches in there and just print gold watches.
He already had all the money he needed, obviously.
He had all but he
I
didn't have
don't know
revenge.
who in the room said this, but when they realized that they were duplicating the hats, one of you guys was just like, why wouldn't he just open a hat shop?
You could just open a hat store, sell a hat.
Duh.
Obviously.
But it was about the revenge. But I don't think it should have been about revenge. Right. The best trick.
The final theme for the movie, and we've already touched upon this, but I wanted to talk about it because this is an arts co-op, is just essentially how devoted you are to your art, which is a very strange and kind of terrible thing with how it's explored in this movie of just like, you have to give everything up for your art and that's the only way you'll be good sort of thing.
And we have one character who gives up everything in his life that he loves in order to fulfill this dream. And then we have another character who literally murders himself every single night
on the stage every night.
Like there's no winning.
Yeah. These aren't healthy relationships.
No.
Not with
not
art
healthy,
and
not healthy obsessions, not healthy like pursuits of the craft, nothing. Yeah.
Well, Michael Caine said, obsession is a young man's game.
What was the quote? I don't remember it now. I watched this last weekend, but where he says you have to give up something to be on top, or you have to be number one, you have to give up. What is it? Do you guys remember?
I don't remember. I'm sure we can like pull up some quotes though and find it. I'll let Brian do that since it seems like he's on top of it. But this is like something that's explored often in movies, which is, you know, a form of art in and of itself, of just like how much you have to sacrifice to be an artist. And it's just very unhealthy. And I kind of hate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, here at Dragonfly, we don't believe in the trope of the starving artist.
Right.
You shouldn't have to give up your well-being to
look. You shouldn't have to murder yourself nightly just to get paid.
Fair. True.
Sorry, I was reading through my notes real quickly just to see if I had any more information there. Yeah, no, it's a dark thing that I've noticed is pretty standard in movies when it portrays art, is just like how much you're willing to sacrifice for art as if that is a part of it. And I think it's very, very sad.
Yeah, it's definitely become a very what do I want to say? It's a very like held onto core belief of artists and the art industry as a whole, that you have to sacrifice greatly to be successful. And if you don't, you're not a true artist. Or, you know, the whole thing about like an artist doesn't really become appreciated until after he's dead, because he's worked himself so hard to the point where, you know, he's no longer even on this planet to be relevant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely have problems with that trope, which is why I started this group.
I had another thought and it just parachuted out of my head.
I can't quite find the quote you're talking about.
I will try.
Think.
There's a lot of good ones about obsession that came from Tesla in it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It was a very good movie. It looked like watching it, it looked more like a movie than, let's say, you know, Knock on the Cabin Door, right? it was shot digitally. This was shot on film. This felt like a movie. That said, I think there were some. I think the script wasn't as good as everybody says it was, because you set up this whole like. It feels like it's set up like a heist movie, right? Where you go watch Ocean's 11 and you find out in the third, like that last twist or whatever, how it all happened. And it feels like this was missing that moment. But they set up that like a magic trick is 3 steps, right? The what was the setup, the reveal, or and then the prestige, right?
Yeah.
Something ordinary, yeah. I'm trying to find the quote. But anyways, and it feels like the script should have also followed that. Like there should have been the prestige, right? Like
I got it. The promise, the turn, and the prestige. Those are the 3 acts of a magic trick.
And it didn't feel like it had that. It also didn't follow. Like it feels like they used he read the book and he's like, wow, that's great. I'm not going to use any of this. I'm just going to use because Rebecca was telling me a little bit more about the book, how the book more explores less of, in any of this and more of the magic trick, the which one are you going to end up in the water? Or are you going to end up in teleporting, right? It's your consciousness gets shifted, and like it's more about that.
That's an interesting question that I don't think he explored, is like, how did they decide which person was going to perform that night and which person was going to be? Well, I guess he didn't.
He doesn't know. He that was his whole thing, was he doesn't know if he's going to be the one that falls into the tank or the one that appears on the thing. And I think that's because in the book, that's not something they explore. It's more like about the obsession of building the trick in the first place.
Because that's a creepy thought.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think and there's other media, and I think there's like an Outer Limits episode where it's, which one, or there's a video game called Soma where I know, I told you I was going to bring it up.
You did.
Where you're a consciousness in a robot body, and at some point you have to transfer into a different body, and the first time it goes fine, and the second one you hear yourself in the other room before they turn that body off, and you're like, wait, I thought you were transferring. No, I was copying your mind. I can't. It's not cut and paste. It's copy.
So then it's like, well, what am I when I've already died?
So you go into the final stretch of the game is you're transferring your consciousness to a satellite in space to join to basically this big AI heaven.
Well, now I can't play this game, you realize.
It's true. But it's, which one are you? Are you going to be the one that goes to heaven? Or are you the one that's sinking to the bottom of the ocean?
I found the quote that I was thinking of.
Oh, let's hear it.
It's, we each had a full life, really, which was enough for us. But not for them. You see, sacrifice, Robert. That's the price of a good trick.
I mean, it's not though, right? Like I've seen plenty of card tricks that you don't have to sacrifice anything to really.
Look, if it's a good card trip, what you've sacrificed is the time it took to get that card trick good.
To learn, I guess. Or if you cut a woman in half, is the time it took to find a really flexible lady to fit in that weird box.
I've seen a magic show or two in my day, and I am fairly certain they have never either killed themselves or the person that they love to perform their tricks.
Yeah. I mean, he created a clone of himself, and his first thing was to like shoot him. Like, no, have a conversation with yourself. See where that goes.
Yeah, I know that was an odd instinctual choice to make.
Why would you need to have a trick again? Like, why would you need to continually duplicate yourself?
The secret. You can't have.
You already have 2 of you.
Right. You can't have him walking around and reveal the secret to everyone. I know, that's like, you could just fake the electricity part and then just have him walk out from the whatever.
Go kill the other guy, the stand-in, the lookalike. Have your clone just take his life.
But that would reveal the secret.
But now do 3 doors to really mess with people.
Ooh. Yeah.
Or 4 doors.
14 doors.
I will
14
say
doors.
I really liked I can't remember the characters' names, but Hugh Jackman's character's version of the trick where it's just a doorway. Yeah, and you see it from the side, and then he just peers down. I really liked that visual of it.
Yeah, again, for Michael Caine was right. It was the easiest. He's like, no, there's two of them.
Mm-hmm.
He said it, and that was
He's
the
got a
bigger
double.
reveal, right? Than the fact that he has a cloning machine that can manufacture.
Well, and that was set up to be the biggest reveal too. Like,
right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why did he store the cloning machine like right into you had to walk through a hall of clones to get to the cloning machine? Well, I don't know. I'm still just caught up on the fact that this is the weirdest way to set this up.
Again, I think he was done, right? He was going to do 99 shows, and then he was just going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he set it up for 100 shows, and we don't know how many he actually got through because the goal was to just do the trick enough times that Christian Bale shows up.
Framed for his murder. Yeah,
which
because that was the real trick.
That was the real trick. Which again, just have your clone go kill him, and then have that guy go to prison. And you have an army of yous.
Do you not trust yourself enough? You have to shoot yourself?
It seems like.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's just a weird premise. But yeah, watching it again and knowing at the end, it didn't hit the same way. And it does just kind of feel like it asks a bunch of questions and then answers them in rapid fire at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it was just kind of like me just being like, all right.
I did think that the little ending setup for all the reveals was very trite. And I had forgotten coming into this how it ended. So it was like going in blind. Like it was like the first time I'd seen it again. And then it felt very unsatisfying to just know everything like that just at the end.
We talked about it at the showing, but I don't think Christian Bale. I think when Hugh Jackman died, he should have kicked over the lantern, and then it should have caught Christian Bale stuck in the flaming wreckage of the trick. No one should have survived, and then it's just Michael Caine bringing up the daughter, because being the only one who survived.
Well, but then you don't get Christian Bale being set up as the hero, which was
but
the
he's
whole
not
point.
The hero.
But that was
he's
the
point. Villain.
But the point was to make you think he was the villain when actually he was the hero.
But he wasn't the hero.
Everybody sucks here.
Everybody sucks.
The other thing that I thought about, and I think I said when we were watching it, was I have never been to a show where a different show sabotages it, and I'm very upset about it.
That would have been the best show to go to.
Again, I've watched a lot of movies where it's like stage performers in the movies, and it happens almost every time where somebody jumps up on the stage and starts punching people, or in this movie where Christian Bale uses it as a way to get people into the seats for his own show across the street. And I'm like, this would have been so much better. I want to see it.
But did he tie Root up? Did he tell him that he was gonna
Yeah, hey, I also have that question.
I'm gonna dangle you.
I don't think so.
Also, thinking back when Christian Bale was dating Sarah, what's her face?
The wife.
So right, he's like, well, I can't get in that lock. Was his brother sneaking through the window? What was gonna happen if she did invite him in? Yeah.
I guess he would sneak back out the window?
I guess, know. But at the same time, that means he's walking around as himself, and there's two of him.
Yeah, when did they decide?
True. When did they decide as children?
Especially if one of them was always, what's his name?
How long Gordon? Were they planning this trick?
No,
Fallon?
Fallon?
Yes, Fallon.
Fallon only shows up after they dissolve the act that they were both plants for. So it's when Borden decides to actually start his own show. is when Fallon starts showing up. And that was something I kept an eye on because I remember Fallon just being a weird character who just appears out of nowhere, says nothing the entire time,
And
but
you
is
and you never
trusted.
focus on him for very long. You just
Yeah. Which
I
is weird
do-
because, like, honestly, I think they did a pretty good job with his makeup.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did. He kind of was framed as being his what do they call them, imagineur or whatever, like
Or
the
I was
guy
gonna say
who
just
invents the
Ingenue.
tricks.
manager. You should
Um,
booking him.
but
Yeah, no, he is. He's listed as that ingenue, is I think what it was. I don't know.
it's some kind of French play on words.
It's engineer, but French.
Yeah.
But it's also like imagine.
Mhm.
Imagineur, I don't know.
Christopher
whatever.
Nolan suggested the actors not read the original novel, but Christian Bale ignored that advice. Of course he did.
He's kind of a dick.
Good for you.
He's a good actor though. But yeah, I don't know. I did enjoy him being able to be with his daughter at the end. I thought that was nice. It does tie everything up in kind of like a nice, pretty little bow, though. So
Right. But again, I still hold him responsible for the wife's death, but we don't know which one is the actual one who is on stage that night. He even
that
writes
could
like,
have
I don't know.
genuinely true,
He-
but also that could have genuinely been an accident.
Oh, I
Like,
think it was. He didn't do it to murder her, but he was
no.
also one of the brothers was warned, don't do this, that knot doesn't work in water.
And maybe he didn't tell him or forgot to tell him, or
Well, he didn't know there were two of them. He didn't know he had to tell him twice.
it just
I'm
that scene also really struck me in how fast she drowned. Usually that doesn't happen so fast.
Well, I mean, they're not going to do it in real
CPR.
time.
Yeah, CPR didn't.
But I was just the whole time I was thinking, I was like, they could save her. Like what? It just breathes, chest breathe some
chest compressions. Come
yeah,
on,
exactly.
people.
Come, what are you guys doing?
I mean, if it was period accurate, they might just like billow smoke up her butt. I'm remembering.
Put some leashes on her, suck the water out.
No, if anything, it's Hugh Jackman's fault because if your spouse is in the show, maybe you be the one that ties the knot that literally her life depends on, instead of letting that guy do it.
Yeah,
I know
you
you
get
want to
out
kiss
with
her
your
thigh,
legs.
or
Yeah.
That's a thought.
but anyway, it wouldn't work for that. Yeah. Again, it was good. I think that it lacked certain, I don't know, some scenes didn't go anywhere, or I didn't see how they related, and there was definitely like a bigger theme that they just kind of ignored. I don't like movie magic. So like you watch, have you seen Glass Onion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in that, something will happen, and then later on we'll do a flashback and see how
The
they
rest
think
of
it
the
happened.
scene, yeah.
But if you watched it the first time, you can see how it actually happened. So I was watching the little glass switch, and I
hate
noticed
that too.
it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but in Glass Onion they did it the right way, because he actually did do the thing in the first one, in the first time we see it, and then the flashback they change it.
For this movie, I think you did it with the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where Borden goes and like touches his daughter's face, and I could have sworn he had all his fingers, even though this was after shooty time. But I don't know if that was continuity because they never made mention of it. So I don't know if either A, I missaw it was a continuity error, or that was supposed to be a hint.
It probably was a hint.
Maybe, but no, like
maybe it was just the other hand.
Maybe it was just the other hand.
Yeah. I think that watching this movie a second time, I think there's something to be said about there's a lot of media that gets really, really hyped up. And that hype is what makes the movie less good.
And
I could have phrased that way better.
It's been long enough at this point that this movie is enjoyable because nobody remembers it. Like, it's not one of those movies that kind of like stayed in the zeitgeist, So you can go in completely blind without having any background knowledge or hype behind it.
I think that I picked this movie because Ryan hadn't seen it, and it like occasionally comes up in like the banners for like streaming services.
Really? Oh.
And every single time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, Ryan hasn't seen this movie. We should watch this movie." And I think it lives in that thing of like, I know it exists, but every now and then it just like it has to be brought up again for me.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen Memento. I haven't seen
What?
Inception. I haven't seen
You haven't seen
Tenet.
Memento? And you
No,
work in film?
He
I
went to
have it on
film
DVD.
school. Wait,
What? It was
You-
at I bought it at Walgreens. It was on sale. I just never watched it. I think I have the problem of if everyone's like, "This is the best movie ever," I just don't watch it.
look, it's the hype.
It's the hype. It never
Yeah.
lives up to the hype.
That happened to me in The Godfather.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that makes sense.
But yeah, I watching this the second time, I definitely enjoyed it. I still think that the ending felt a little rushed in all the reveals. But I did think I liked the way that they revealed the twin stuff better in this than in Glass Onion. Like in Glass Onion, it felt very contrived.
Sure. I mean, yeah, Glass Onion didn't quite have the twist.
No,
I think Glass Onion was a more traditional whodunit. There wasn't a trick to
but
it
it
necessarily.
felt like it was trying to be like, oh, it's a twist, it's a surprise, you didn't know, and it's like, no, it's just the character that was on screen left, and we didn't see the rest of what happened. It's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Christopher Nolan's new movie,
Oppenheimer.
Haven't heard anything.
I mean, what's not to like about a movie?
I mean, we kind of know how it's gonna go, though.
Yeah.
Supposedly, he used real explosives to recreate the Trinity nuclear test. I wonder.
Anyways.
I have to wonder. Did he ask? Can we get a nuke? Can we just one little nuke? Like, how much would it cost?
Actually,
they do make little nukes.
Just
They
a
make
little
mini
tactical
ones.
nuke.
Before we like get completely off topic, I didn't notice. So Christopher Nolan has a thing with sound design where he only designs the sound in his movies for movie theaters because he views that as the way that you have to watch movies. And it's caused a problem because if you try to watch his movies on like a home video screen, oftentimes you can't understand anybody. And it's partially like I think his own little vindictive nature of just like go to the movie theaters to watch my movies. And I think the other is he has said that he doesn't want to like fake the sounds. Like if you're in an airport, you're going to hear the sounds of the plane engines and you're going to have to yell over them. And we want that to be natural, but I didn't notice that with this. It actually sounded completely fine throughout the entire movie.
I think this development is I think you're right. I think it's him being like, no, you have to see movies in theaters as an attempt to get people to post-COVID to go back to theaters. But I also think he's reached the point of his career where he's unapproachable. Yeah. I think James Cameron is there where they can't do wrong, right? They're artists. Everything they do is perfect and exactly. Sure, Tenet didn't make any money, and it's a huge bomb in the box office. But yeah, I don't know.
But it's the name that we're paying for.
Yeah, I'm over that. I'm over stars in general, to be honest with you.
I've seen the same people in so many movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like it gets really tired. Like there are certain actors that I like, but I'm not going to go see a movie because a specific actor is in it, even though I know that's what Hollywood thinks.
Right.
Yeah. Hollywood is very, very corporate in the way it makes things. And it you can tell these days, which is why I kind of brought up in the beginning, like Christopher Nolan kind of has a theme that goes on with his movies. And yeah, it's a very impressive theme and it's very hard to mimic, but I think other people have mimicked it. And I think it's one of the things that make his movies less surprising now when he does do it.
I think that's definitely true of M. Night Shyamalan. Like, he does not surprise me anymore at all.
Yeah. But talking about like the stars and things, this is actually not early on in Scarlett Johansson's career, but it's pre Black Widow, and it's pre like her being like a bombshell
icon.
of Hollywood. But every poster that I've seen for The Prestige has her in it. And I kind of, because her character doesn't feel that important that it has to be in it. And so did they add that later on?
Nor does it feel that important that it had to be her. It could have been anybody.
It is funny you mentioned that, Rebecca, because I'm looking at the posters, and it looks like one of the original posters is just Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman across from each other. And then at some point, they put Scarlett Johansson on the cover in the middle.
Put Michael Caine on the cover in the middle. I'd still watch it.
There is one of Michael Caine. There's also
that is that's the poster that I remember from going to see this in the theater, was just Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, because at the time, like, people knew who ScarJo was, but they didn't like care as much about her.
Right. Yeah, I think that was something they did later on to try to like eke a little bit more star power out of the movie.
Yeah, probably. Even though it's not her greatest movie, she's not the biggest character, and it didn't need to be her.
I'm going to pull up an image, because I think this is the coolest poster. Hold on,
I mean, there's a few. Again, people loved this movie. Absolutely, yes. It is. I talked to 2 people who said this was their favorite movie.
What? Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. And having seen it, I'm like, is it though?
I do. When I saw this in the theater, I really enjoyed
poster that I have found for
that.
That's
great.
The one that I remember. Yeah.
Because that one hints at what the twist is.
Yeah, this is a great movie poster, and I would 100% have this on my wall if I had it.
Yeah.
Not the other ones where it's just Scarlett Johansson in between their 2 faces, but she is like smoky and it shows off her figure. Make more posters like this.
This is really cool because it gives everything away without giving anything away.
Right. Yeah. You don't know unless you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a discussion at some point.
Really, really great marketing. Whoever
in
designed
2020,
this.
Empire ranked this movie as one of the 100 greatest movies of the 21st century.
Really?
At some point in time, I think we're going to have like a long discussion about movie posters, because I have a lot of opinions on them and like the history of them and how they grew. And I would love to talk about them at some point, but I don't think now is the time.
I guess in some of the reviews for it, they compared it to the rivalry between Mozart and Salieri in Amadeus, which I think is a much better.
That's a great movie.
Which we will watch at some point for this movie club.
Is better about obsession than this movie.
Not the rivalry between Tesla and Edison?
No, well, I mean, but I wouldn't call them equals, though, because Tesla was a scientist and Edison was a businessman. So,
but they were competing for the same space.
Kind of. I think if the one in this movie was AC versus DC, right? Alternating current versus direct current, and Edison was all about direct current, and obviously Tesla's superior alternating current won out. But again, I think that was more of a marketing fight than it was, how does Tesla do it? What's his secret?
Imagine if we'd gotten a world where electricity was all branched off of Tesla's. Like,
yeah, I mean, we know more about, electricity than Tesla did at this point in our, so whether or not he could have actually done wireless.
In an alternate timeline, all electricity is wireless and free, is all I'm saying.
But
I'm going to pull all these movie posters because
So I know Disney has a sample of induction based. So like there's a room at Disney in one of their research labs where you can walk in and hold a light bulb and it'll light up because the whole room has wireless, enough in the waves that it carries a charge. No idea what the long-term effects of being in that room is though, because you're just getting bombarded with a lot of radiation.
You can also do the same thing with just like a kind of laser pointed at the edge of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Less of a
yeah.
room charge and more of a direct charge.
Right. So to say that, oh man, we could have had wireless electricity, I think is a little, I don't think that
maybe. I mean, 100 years later, who knows?
Maybe. Similarly, I don't think his death laser would have actually worked.
I don't think his teleporter would have actually worked.
It's true.
His
How did that work?
teleporter cloning machine.
That's right. Oh, David Bowie. But yeah.
Yeah. So
what else can we say about this movie? It was good. It was good.
It's a fun watch.
Yeah. Johnny put his phone down. That's how you know he was enjoying it.
Yeah, so. At the start of the movie, because Johnny, who we watched it with, is not a movie person. And literally he was like, I just want you to know I'm probably going to sit on my phone through most of this. It's President's Day weekend, and there are a lot of sales going on. And it took like maybe 10 minutes before his phone was like upside down on the table. And he was very, very into the movie for the rest of it. So I think that's a good testament. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it's an engaging movie. It hooks you from the beginning with like a good kind of mystery storyline. You're trying to figure it out the whole time. You're like, how is he doing this? But yeah, my only question is, where is Johnny on this discussion?
It's a good question.
He's working. It turns out, because we had a lot of people who were interested in talking about it, but it kind of came down to the wire. I was really busy this week. Beckett was going to be busy for the other parts. So we really only had this Friday night, and it turns out people like doing things on Friday night.
Ugh.
Weirdos.
What? Don't they know that we've had 2 years of COVID, 3 years of COVID?
You guys don't want to sit in your houses and talk about movies?
You're only supposed to see other people on the screen.
So yeah, that was The Prestige. I enjoyed watching it. And any final thoughts at all?
Apparently we are using Tesla's wireless power. It's called 5G.
Sure, so they say.
That's what that so they say.
Well, I don't have any final thoughts. I think we pretty much
perfect.
Beat the horse dead. But thank you to anyone out on internet land for joining us. And again, if you are catching this on the replay, feel free to leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Have you seen this movie? Do you want to see this movie?
I hope if you've made it this far, you probably should have stopped and watched the movie before now.
Probably. Yeah.
But I did make these clubs so that people could watch movies that they don't usually watch. Mm-hmm. And I hope that you guys watch them.
Yeah. And our next picks will be posted on the 1st. So, keep on the lookout.
Look out for that and watch it and tell me your thoughts.
And if you have a movie you want us to watch or think we should watch,
you can submit it on the suggestion form, which is pinned in the Facebook group, which is on the link over there.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to start putting the suggestion box like on the comments for everything. So if you've made it this far in, you can find it in the comments. I'm just going to add it on there.
And if you want to participate in the next panel discussion, let us know.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.